I am Koios, the Rōnin BeatMaker, and welcome to Lounge Rōnin. All things, everything. And before we get into it, make sure to hit that like button. And ring that notification bell. And if you're new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe and leave a comment with your thoughts below and a hint of some constructive criticism, as that will help me and the channel grow. And on this episode, we're going to discuss the Bosnian Pyramid. I don't know how many of you out there are familiar with the Bosnian Pyramid. I was first privy to it from a documentary. It may have been Ancient Aliens, I'm not sure. It may have been a channel I saw on YouTube. But I found it really astounding and pretty very intriguing, especially the lead archaeologist on the site. There's some really interesting things about it. And, spoiler alert, there is a pyramid in Bosnia, just as there's pyramids in the United States. Ye told you that recently. I've been telling y'all that. But we'll get into all of that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alrighty. Okay. Now, this article was updated May 29th, 2020, and it was written by Richard Hoyle. The Bosnian Pyramids, one of the greatest finds ever. In 2020, as we begin a new decade, Dr. Sam O and the Bosnian period of the Sun Foundation is celebrating its 15th year since multidisciplinary investigations of the Bosnian pyramids began. This year's upcoming summer excavation season promises to be the most active yet, with archaeological excavations taking place across the Pyramid Valley, both above and below the ground on the Bosnian pyramids of the Sun and Moon. Ventrica Tumulus, Ravine Tunnels, Ravine 3 Tunnels, and newly discovered Ravine 4 Tunnels. In 2005, Bosnian-born anthropologist Dr. O announced to the world's media his discovery that a group of hills in the vicinity of Visoko, a small town in central Bosnia, were not hills at all, but were in fact buried and forgone pyramids of both monumental size and extreme age. The Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, the largest of Bosnian pyramids, is estimated to be at least 300 meters tall, or 900 feet tall. The Bosnian Pyramid of the Moon, though smaller at 109 meters, or 600 feet tall, is still over 50 meters, 100 feet taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, I personally, I find this pyramid to be extremely fascinating, just as fascinating as the pyramid located, or the pyramids located in China. But one of the pyramids for me personally that I find extremely fascinating is the pyramid in Indonesia and its ties to Turkey. But that's a whole nother thing. Even what's funny here is that the pyramids in China are also bigger than the pyramids in Egypt. And one of the first pyramids to have ever been found, which is, I believe, about 600 years or 900 years older than the pyramids in Giza, is a pyramid in Greece. So don't listen to anyone out there who's telling you there's no pyramids in any other place in the world. There's pyramids in Mexico. I mean, they just look different. I mean, you look at skyscrapers around the entire world, they all look the same. They just have different styles, different architects, different personalities, but skyscrapers relatively all look the same. So it's no different that if, we were to be, dead and gone and all that remains are these massive, decrepitated, skyscrapers all across the world, and the new civilization that comes, after us, they would postulate and speculate, well, you know what? There must have been a worldwide civilization because we have all these giant skyscrapers all over the world. So it'd be foolish of us to not think that because there are pyramids all over the world, and just because, they may call some mounds, but it's no different than what we see here in Bosnia. Once they cleared away the brush, the trees, the debris, holy smokes, there's a pyramid. No different than the pyramids in Mexico, where, they cleared them off. First it just looked like mounds. Someone got a little closer look and like, hey, something's here. They clear it up and they're like, holy crap, there's a giant pyramid here. You look at the radar technology that's using, the ground penetrating radar, and how, they're flying over the rainforests over in, South America, and they're finding entire cities that, some, explorers of that area and local people have been like, we've traveled through this area. We didn't even know that this pyramid or these structures were even here because the rainforest overgrown and took back. So, I'm just saying, I'm just leaving that out there for people to kind of keep into consideration when you look at these pyramids throughout the entire world. But enough of a Rōnin rant. Let's get back into it. The response to his announcement was mixed, with equal amounts of excitement from those enthusiastic to esoteric ideas regarding the world's ancient pyramids, but there was skepticism from many, including the local Bosnian population, and despite lack of any proper scientific investigation on their part, outright condemnation from academic circles intent on maintaining a crumbling paradigm. And here we have a aerial photo of one of the Bosnian pyramids. Direct observation and anecdotal stories. When Dr. O first made his statement to the world press, his pyramid hypothesis was based initially on several direct observations. That a number of hills in the area local to Visoko were four-sided with triangular faces. The corners and slope angle of the triangular faces were irregular. Like many other world pyramids and megalithic sites, the faces of these hills were almost perfectly oriented towards cardinal points, north, south, east, west. The spatial arrangement of three of the largest pyramid hills, Sun, Moon, and Dragon pyramids, formed a near-perfect equilateral triangle between their peaks. The relative position and height of the Sun and Moon pyramids cause a shadow to be cast that marks the beginning of summer and the transition through to midsummer. Here we have two images. The photos show interaction between the shadow cast by the Bosnian pyramid of the Sun upon the Bosnian pyramid of the Moon. Image left shows a shadow on the summer solstice matching height of the Moon pyramid, which by midsummer moves to totally cover the pyramid right. And as you can see, you can literally see the shadow of the pyramid in both images. Natural hills don't necessarily, have astrological accuracy. But I mean, I digress. Let's get back to it. With these observations made by Dr. O were also the countless anecdotal stories told to him by the local population. The older generations would speak of how they used to play as children in underground tunnels all around Visoko, tunnels that later had their entrances sealed by authorities during the time of Yugoslavia. Knowing the association between subterranean passages, hollow spaces, chambers, and also all known ancient pyramids around the world, Dr. O recognized the significance of these local told stories and would soon set work on rediscovering, thus confirming, the existence of these underground tunnels. And we have to always keep in mind that the older generations, they know, you know how I would put it, they know relatively more information about the true history than we are known. Because, if look at the Rockefeller education system, it was essentially a system of propaganda and domestication. It took people, it took children and people and it took systems of propaganda and domestication, and it took the citizens, and it pretty much domesticated their belief system into what Rockefeller and the oligarchs wanted people to believe and think. That's why you look at the attack on homeopathic doctors of the Rockefeller age, and essentially demonizing and essentially making homeopathic remedies and options and treatments, blasphemy, dangerous. Yet we now know that homeopathic remedies and practices are more long-lasting and healthier, as opposed to being shoved into a corporate medical facility. But I digress. Enough of a Rōnin rant. Let's get back into it. But the point, what I'm trying to say, is that the older generations, they knew of the true history in many regards. But due to Rockefeller's education system and demonizing the true history, i.e., the Smithsonian, you now have a population that does not know the true history and believes lies and deceit. But let's continue. 2006, the excavation begins. Beginning in 2006, Dr. O would self-finance investigations of the Bosnian Pyramids in order to obtain empirical evidence to support his controversial pyramid hypothesis. Using satellites, georadar, seismic surveys, topographic analysis, a total of 5 principal sites were identified for initial investigation, named later Pyramid Sun, Moon, Dragon, Love, and Temple of Mother Earth. Archaeological trenches were excavated across all these principal sites and were overseen by Dr. O and other experts in the field of archaeology, geology, and geophysics. And here we have 4 images of archaeological excavations taking place on the northern face of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. Reveal blocks composed of artificial geopolymer stronger than most modern-day concretes. Wow. There's a word right there for you guys. Artificially geopolymer. So it was artificially made. Who made it? And it's stronger than most modern-day concretes. Which would, to me personally, would explain why, this pyramid, was probably able to withstand many of the cataclysms that we probably have seen in the ancient times. Whether you look at the water erosion on the Great Sphinx, all of that stuff, Randall Carlson's work. I mean, it's getting, as the veil continues to get lifted, it's harder and harder to hide many of these things. Let's continue. As well as the surface excavations, core drilling was also conducted with samples undergoing geomechanical and material analysis by several specialized university departments internationally. Results suggested the material was an artificially conglomerate geopolymer, and though it looked like natural stone, it had dissimilar chemical and mechanical properties to the geological material found locally. Strength tests measured it to be considerably stronger than both the locally found conglomerates and even modern day concrete. So, that would speculate, to me personally, I would speculate that we lost an old technique in mixing stone and creating it stronger than concrete. I mean, that's my speculation. Is it's an old, long lost construction technique. The evidence obtained supported by Dr. O's original hypothesis that these hills under investigation were not just regular hills, but were in fact either, at the very least, modified to look like pyramids or were completely built from the ground up by a civilization of great antiquity, unknown to the mainstream version accepted history, using methods of construction unknown to modern science. Like I was saying. And here we have looks like a 3D rendering of one of the pyramids with a graph to the right. Professor Dr. K and Professor Dr. T from Smith Institute of Russia Academy of Natural Sciences, Moscow, conducted seismic surveys of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun and concluded its seismic response matched that of the measurements they had made during a similar survey at the Great Pyramid of Giza. I'm going to repeat that. Seismic surveys of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun and concluded its seismic response matched that of the measurements they had made during a similar survey at the Great Pyramid of Giza. I mean, how much more of a confirmation do you need? That obviously there was some form of communication between the construction of the pyramids in Giza and the construction of the Bosnian Pyramid. Perhaps, for all we know, it may have been under the same contractors. Those Nephilim contractors and those Anunnaki architects. I'm gonna repeat that again for those in the back that didn't hear it. Seismic surveys of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun and concluded its seismic response matched that of the measurements that they had made during a similar survey at the Great Pyramid of Giza. Do your own research if you want more confirmation on this, as I implore you guys and advocate for doing your own research. Let's continue. Discovery of subterranean tunnels lost in time. Not long after the initial phase of investigations began, Dr. O would find an opening to the underground tunnel network spoken of, which would later be named the ravine tunnels. An opening to these tunnels were located approximately 2.5 kilometers northwest of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. At the time of the discovery, the entranceway was known locally, but was only suspected as being a small cave of no significance. Upon closer inspection, Dr. O realized at the rear of the cave was an infilled passage. Here we have a digital render of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun in relation to the excavation and explored sections of the ravine tunnels. Wow. In order to explore the passages at the ravine tunnels entrance, Dr. O began excavating the small cave. What was revealed was a shock to everyone, including the local historians. It was not simply the entrance to the tunnels that had been blocked up in more recent times, but seemingly the entire tunnel network, which is known to run for thousands of meters, had been backfilled with loose rubble material, a painstaking task of such magnitude it almost seems implausible to imagine that it would have been undertaken without being noticed and recorded by local populations if it had occurred within recent historic ages. After only a few 10 meters of excavating, Dr. O had revealed multiple infilled passages heading in different directions, the junctions of which were marked by simple yet beautiful drywall constructions. They clearly indicated that the passages cutting through the solid rock and their subsequent blockage were not the work of nature, but it was done so intelligently and purposeful hands. Now, this reminds me very similar of Göbekli Tepe, which they uncovered and realized that it was purposely buried. They don't know who, they don't know why. All they know is that the site was purposely buried and preserved. Some speculate it was because whoever built the site were aware of a coming cataclysm. Göbekli Tepe is in Turkey, and also in Turkey is those massive underground tunnel cities, some of which connect to Ireland. But that's a whole nother conversation. But it just seems like whoever purposely filled those tunnels, they knew something was coming. And they wanted, my speculation here, my personal speculation, they wanted to preserve the pyramid for whatever reason. No different than Göbekli Tepe. As work continued, and more of the tunnel network was emptied or rubble, enabling hundreds of meters worth of tunnels to be explored, further intriguing discoveries were made. The existence of chambers with multiple passages leading to them were identified, shaped stones with possible Proto-Runic language inscribed on them. Also, large megalithic blocks, clearly out of context with the surrounding geological material, now known as the megaceramic blocks K1, K2, and K3, and the egg-shaped monolith were found. An egg-shaped monolith. Once again, all these discoveries continue to support the initial statements made by Dr. O in 2005 regarding his prehistoric Bosnian Pyramid hypothesis. Here we have 4 images. Top left, Dr. O inside the ravine tunnels, pointing to infield passage with drywall construction in front of it. So also oh wow, that's really smart. Top right, 1 over 50 dry walls identified within the ravine tunnels. Bottom left, excavation and subsequent removal of rubble blocking the ravine tunnels. Bottom right, megalithic block K2, estimated to weigh 8 tons. One big hoax? Of course, none of these objective proofs brought to light by Dr. O were enough to convince the gatekeepers of pre-existing historic paradigm. And that's one of the biggest issues that I have, is that the mainstream academics, their whole purpose, their whole funding is to lie and deceive and obfuscate and suppress. You don't believe me? Go check out my live streams where I talk about mainstream academia and the lost race of giants. Go watch that one. Or go watch my 2-parter on the lost giants of Virginia, of West Virginia. Go watch those. Where was I? Okay, here we go. One big hoax. Of course, none of these objective proofs brought to light by Dr. O were enough to convince the gatekeepers of the pre-existing historic paradigm. Authoritative critics of the project would make unfounded and somewhat preposterous accusations that Dr. O was shaping the hills to look like pyramids, and that he was digging the tunnels himself, we presume at night time in total darkness. Yeah, that's what's so crazy about these mainstream academics. When stuff comes out that conflicts with their tenure, with their research, they start throwing doo doo at the wall and hoping something will stick. The European Association of Archaeologists called the Bosnian Pyramid project a hoax on an unsuspecting public, while the publication British Archaeology called the Bosnian Pyramids a great scheme. Disgraced Egyptian Minister of Antiquities Dr. Zahi Hawass, don't trust this guy, he is a total fraud, a horrible person, also had to have his say. Of course he did, because why wouldn't he? The man's full of shit. Undoubtedly from fear of losing tourist revenue, saying that Dr. O was suffering from hallucinations. All it be persistent ones? Crazy. Slightly less preposterous was look how they attacked Graham Hancock or even Randall Carlson. But anyways, let's continue. Slightly less preposterous was the unfounded conjecture that the tunnels were the product of Yugoslavian army training exercises. Non-experts in this field also illogically concluded that the tunnels were the remains of medieval gold mine, despite the fact that there is no gold or ever was any mineral or economic importance within the rock until the ravine tunnels cut through. Numerous websites and Wikipedia entries calling the Bosnian Pyramids a pseudo-archaeological notion were set up to misinform the curious public, sometimes through omission, other times through deceit, spin, and outright lies. It seemed that while there were plenty of people ready to attack Dr. O on a personal level, no one was arguing directly against Dr. O's raised proofs in an objective scientific manner on a fair playing field. They never do. They never do. They called Graham Hancock a white supremacist. The man's wife is Indian. That's what they do. They don't attack the data. They only attack the character. They only attack the person. Because if they attack the data and the data ends up being true, then their credibility comes into question. And they know that as long as they attack the person, and make all these, crazy accusations of the person, if any of the actual data or discoveries turns out to be true, they can, play out of sight, out of mind about it, or not even make a comment, because they only attack the character. They didn't attack the data. Okay, let's continue. Most open and transparent site in the world. Besides the controversies generated by the Bosnian Pyramid project, there is, of course, one other thing that differentiates the research taking place in the Bosnian Pyramid Valley to that of any other archaeological project. It is the most open and transparent archaeological site in the world. Unlike in Egypt, for example, where it is almost impossible for anyone outside of the clique of Egyptology to undertake independent or even cooperative research freely, the Bosnian Pyramid Valley is open to everyone. Now think about that. Why are they so hell-bent? Why are they so hell-bent on not allowing anyone access into the pyramids of Egypt? Any of the sites. Why? Is it because they're hiding something? Is it because there's a giant library underneath the Sphinx? Is it because of one site in Egypt that they purposely filled it up with garbage to prevent anyone from accessing it? And you ask yourself, why would they do that? Why would they allow a man like Dr. Zahi to run antiquities when he's out there selling Egyptian artifacts on the black market? Why is it that the Smithsonian has a protocol in place that they established in the early 1900s that if anyone in America discovers giant bones, they are to be immediately confiscated and either destroyed or locked away. I don't know. Ask yourself these questions. Think about it. And how this is the most transparent site. Every other, archaeological site is these are closed behind locked door, or you need special privileges, or you need to be part of the clique to get access. But not this one. Here we have an image of physicist Slobodan Mizrak and a electrokinetical engineer Goran Majovic are two of several independent researchers who came to measure the electromagnetic and ultrasonic emissions emanating from the structures within the Bosnian Valley of the pyramids. For example, in 2010, independent researchers have been coming to Visoko to investigate the electromagnetic and archaeoacoustic properties of the Bosnian pyramids. Experts in their fields from UK, Finland, Italy, Croatia, Serbia, each using different equipment and methodology, were able to repeatedly detect and measure emissions being generated by the Bosnian pyramids. Their investigations revealed that the Pyramid of the Sun produced both a focused and stable beam of resonating electromagnetic energy emanating from its peak, as well as accompanying diffusion sound and ultrasonic frequencies. Poly-interface photography, commonly used for photograph biological energy fields, was also utilized across the Bosnian Valley of the pyramids. The PIP camera was able to show how the Bosnian pyramids manipulate the Earth's natural occurring EM field. Imagery taken of nearby hills using the same technique showed a distinctively different EM field pattern, clearly differentiating the energetic properties of the Bosnian pyramids from that of the natural local landforms. That's incredible. Now that reminds me of the documentary that I watched, and where people that were, working on the site talked about feelings of great positiveness, feeling healthy. There are people there that, even if I remember correctly, I'm pulling from the strings of the back of my mind, that there are people there who even had, light arthritis, things like that, where in that working in the pyramids, a lot of those issues were and ailments kind of dissipated. Now, if you're someone who has experienced ultrasound therapy like I have, then you know that it works, and you can definitely feel like a significant difference. So it kind of makes me wonder, was the Bosnian pyramid a pyramid used for healing, physically, mentally, and spiritually? Something to consider and think about and reflect. 2018 and 2019. New openings lead to more tunnels and thousands of artifacts. A more recent landmark discovery, made largely in part of the assistance of volunteers during the 2008 summer camp, was significant enough that for the first time since archaeological work began, the local municipal museum and its staff were now working in cooperation with the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation. This partnership is a small but well-needed step in development and acceptance of the research taking place within the Bosnian Pyramid Valley. Man, I would love to go there for a trip and help and support. And it's incredible now that the local municipal museum is now cooperating with them. That means that they're kind of accepting the reality that, hey, this is real. This is most likely going to be part of our history. And the more discoveries they make, the more epic this thing might end up turning out to be. Especially considering the fact that it's all volunteers. It's all the people who want to help, who want this to be for the public. And that's what makes this site really, really important. More important, I shouldn't say more important than all the other sites, but I should say it's more important in the terms of transparency for for us, for regular civilians, for regular people who are curious. This is a major win in terms of transparency of our lost and hidden history. And here we have photos of the international volunteers during the 2018 excavation season at Ravine 3. Let's continue. Surface excavations undertaken several hundred meters away from the known entranceway to the explored sections of the ravine tunnels revealed a completely new opening into the subterranean network. Like the tunnels before them, the entranceway had been blocked up with loose rubble, and it was down to the volunteers to clear away this material. After 2 weeks of digging underground through the blocked passages, a large section of tunnels was revealed, completely free of any loose blocking material. Chambers and connecting passageways were discovered, and by the following spring of 2019, it was found that the raised floor within the open section was rich in archaeological material. Over the course of the 2019 summer season, over 3,000 individual finds were discovered from the Ravine 3 tunnels. Pottery fragments, tiles, jewelry, coins, tools, Lilith artifacts were excavated. And here we have to the left a medieval pot partially reconstructed from fragments excavated within the Ravine 3 tunnel. Right, a bronze pendant connector with Romanized Celtic motif recovered from Ravine 3 tunnel. Well, that's very interesting. Topological analysis conducted by archaeologists at the Municipal Museum indicated Neolithic, Roman, and medieval periods were represented by these finds. By the end of the summer, as it seemed, all the artifacts may have been recovered from within Ravine 3. However, one last discovery of the season was made: 2 dry walls. By their form, material, and context, the dry walls matched those discovered previously by Dr. O within the original ravine tunnels, linking the creation of the 2 tunnel sections together and inferring each being part of one large subterranean network. At least 6,000 years old. The work completed by the end of 2019 summer season allowed for a minimum age to be given to Ravine 3 tunnels. Using both relative and absolute dating methods, stratigraphically, the dry walls were found below the cultural layers containing artifacts, and radiometric dating of the geological material dated the creation of Ravine 3 tunnels to being at least 6,000 years old, with the expectation they are older. In summary, the work conducted in Ravine 3 categorically disproved any notion that the Yugoslavian army, medieval miners, or Dr. Sam himself were responsible for the creation of the Ravine tunnels network. There you have it. And here we have 2 pictures. The left, a passage connecting 2 chambers within Ravine 3 tunnels. On the right, one of the 2 dry walls found within the Ravine 3 tunnels. For more information on Ravine 3 Tunnel 2018-29 excavations, please see the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation Geological Summary Report. And I will make sure to have the link to the article in the description. Stumbling upon the Ravine 4 tunnels and outlook for 2020. Most recent, and by complete chance, in the winter of 2019, while landscaping and maintenance work was being conducted within the grounds of the Ravine Park complex, workers of the foundation undiscovered yet another opening into the Ravine tunnels network. This opening led to more tunnels free from blocking material and is the closest tunnel section to the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun yet located. Here we have 4 images. Top left, small opening being enlarged to gain entry into ravine 4. Top right, the first chamber leads to several passages, with one being free from blocking materials. Bottom left, a dry wall is identified, marking an infilled passage behind it. Bottom right, an open passage leads to a small chamber. The discovery of Ravine 4 tunnels has saved several years' worth of excavations towards the Sun Pyramid, and as such is now the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation's excavation priority for 2020. Besides the initial prospecting, work has barely begun at this newly identified location. Numerous branching passages, chambers, and dry wells have so far been observed inside Ravine 4 tunnels, with several of these passages leading south, in the direction towards the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, the biggest and oldest pyramid of the world. And finale. So, I don't know about y'all, but pretty hyped about the Bosnian Pyramid. I think we have some really cool stuff going on here. And I think that this site is definitely going to rewrite a lot of history in the coming years. Don't know how significant, but I feel that we'll definitely see a significant change in our perception of our history and of the world. And I implore everyone out there, if this is something that you're interested in, please, do your own research. And while you're at it, make sure you hit that like button. Shout out to my Rumble listeners. I appreciate you guys listening in. I hope you guys have been enjoying this. Make sure you hit that like button. But as I was saying, you all to please go out there and do your own research. Look into these things. And if you are able to and willing, head over to Bosnia, to Visoko, volunteer, show your support, as it would really help them. And, you'll be a part of history. I think that's the most exciting part about it, is knowing that you'll be a part of history. And I think that's more than enough of a reason to get out there and experience this fascinating discovery. Hey, much love, Jay Pylon, much love. The Bosnian Pyramid is something that I think, and like I said, whether it's the Bosnian Pyramid or the 3 pyramids in China, which I might have to do a cover on that one. We have to think about the fact that whether it's in China, Bosnia, Greece, Japan, South America, the United States, there are pyramids all over the world. Antarctica, I know those are a little iffy. There's the pyramid in Alaska that's underground that I believe is black. That's another one that people may not be aware of, but that one, for some odd reason, they're doing everything in their power to make sure nobody knows about the pyramid in Alaska. I've heard some weird things about it, that there might be some remains inside the pyramid. I'm not really sure. But one thing that I do know about that pyramid is that it was after, they initially did tests on it, they said that pyramid was strong enough to power half of Canada. So, where there are some people that believe that the pyramids were some form of energy source of production, that's possible, or they were, by being tied to the ley lines or tied to the electromagnetic frequency of the planet, which we now know that the Bosnian Pyramid was very much in tune to the electromagnetic frequency of the planet. That's why when you watch documentaries about the Bosnian Pyramid and you listen to people that were there, they talk about the feelings of positiveness, of feeling healthy and rejuvenated. And many of these sites, there is supposedly these leftover energies. Whether this energy is from a bygone era or whether it's leftover energy from when ley lines on our planet were shifting, we're right now the poles are long overdue to flip. So we have to kind of ask ourselves these types of questions. And I think about the fact that tunnels and ravines and passageways in the Bosnian Pyramid were purposely filled and covered up with drywall. I mean, you only do that if you're trying to hide things and prevent people from entering or prevent things from destroying such discoveries or in construction work. It's no different than Göbekli Tepe, which, as we now know, was purposely buried. This incredibly astrological calendar that they still haven't even touched the surface was purposely buried for whatever reason. Like I said earlier, I suspect that it was due to them knowing about a potential cataclysm. Like I said earlier, there are underground cities in Turkey that are so large that they had ventilation systems, that they had areas to store grain, that they had areas to store livestock, that they had false doors to prevent people from entering. So you have to kind of ask yourself if you can, or God, where is it's the site in Petra. Yes, the site in Petra. Even the site in Petra, I bet a lot of you guys didn't know that there is an underground city in Petra, that there's another entrance that connects to Petra. So you have these areas where you have these massive cataclysmic cities or these underground cities. Why were they built? How long were people staying in them? You have these megalithic sites, whether it's the Bosnian Pyramid or Göbekli Tepe, that are purposely buried. Like we saw earlier in the discussions of the Bosnian Pyramid, the cement that was created for the pyramid was artificially made. And it was constructed with mixtures that we don't even know how they did it. It was stronger than modern day concrete. So we have to sit here and pretend as if this is impossible. Yet every single day, more and more information, data is discovered that proves, yeah, well, we now know that Egyptians didn't use elephants and levees and pulleys to build the pyramids, considering that some of the limestone rocks came from a quarry that was 900 miles away, 900 or 400 miles away, and that the largest Egyptian boat was like 20 feet, somewhere around there. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, the Egyptians were incredible seafarers. I mean, let's talk about the fact that the Irish, their origins actually trace back to an Egyptian queen, Senu, I believe her name is. So if you want to look at the Irish, they're technically descendants of Egyptians, but that's a whole nother conversation. I think I covered that. Yes, check out my the Romas. They're not called gypsies. That's derogatory. The Roma dynasty that I did a live stream covering the Roma dynasty and how they tied from Egypt all the way to modern day England and Ireland. So the reason why I'm kind of bringing these things up as we wrap up here is that so that we keep in mind that we really don't know our true history. We still have to uncover and recover the secret history. When with the Bosnian Pyramid, as more and more stuff comes out, more archaeological remains, whether it's just pottery, whatever it may be, it's going to keep on rewriting history. No different when I did my presentation covering the Denisovans, which was one of the last forms of hominids. They were pretty much cavemen that walk upright, but somehow they had the ability to create incredible geometric jewelry. So you're telling me that at one point you had this species of humans that, were furry, yet they were able to create geometric jewelry. I mean, I'm just saying that you guys have to make up your own interpretations and your feelings on this information, but all I'm saying is that we really have no idea. And the more information we get, the more things start getting more confusing, or the more questions need to be answered. And like I said, the Bosnian Pyramid here, the more they uncover, the more this thing is going to get wild. And think about it this way. Ask yourself this question. You have the Bosnian Pyramid, which is apparently larger than the Egyptian pyramid in Giza. Yet no one's talking about it. You don't hear anywhere. If you go on any of the, like we know earlier in the article, before all of these sites and all the remains were confirmed, they were doing everything they can to suppress this and call it a lie. So why is it that this incredible pyramid in Bosnia is not getting any type of coverage? Not even basic coverage. So you guys have to think about that. Why is that the case? Why is it that the mounds in West Virginia are not getting excavated? Why is that the pyramids in Florida? Yes, there are pyramids in Florida. Why are they not being excavated? So, it frustrates me because sometimes I feel like I'm crazy, but I know I'm not, because I can pull up this information. It's easy for anyone to look at. It's verifiable. Yet no one wants to take that into consideration. And like I said earlier, we have the Rockefeller education system has pretty much propagandized and domesticated the belief systems of Western society. So for any kind of fantastical information like this to come out into play, the domestication system kicks into gear, and it's like this short story that I read in middle school. I can't even remember the story, but in the story, humans had a little chip in their brain, and anytime they had a free thought or a thought that conflicted with the programming or the narrative, it would actually shock them. It was like a shock collar for your thoughts. And I really am believing that the education system's domestication of our belief system has this internal shock collar that for anybody, whether it's ancient civilizations, whether it's politics, anything that conflicts with the narrative, that conflicts with the belief system, there's this internal shock collar that goes on in people's minds, and they react. And they react by calling you a conspiracy theorist, calling you a racist, calling you a misogynist, whatever it may be, a sexist, anything to ridicule the person, but not the information. And as we said earlier, that was one of the biggest issues, or one of the biggest things that was going on with Dr. O and his excavation of the Bosnian Pyramid. No different than the lead scientist who was investigating the pyramid in Indonesia. Both of these men had their characters attacked, had their methodologies attacked, had their beliefs attacked, but never the data, never the archaeological site. Why? Because the moment they criticize that and it ends up being validated, they become immediately discredited. And that's why you see that going across the board anywhere, whether it's attacks on Robert F. Kennedy, or attacks on Graham Hancock, or attacks on Randall Carlson, attacks on, Glenn Greenwald, any of these people, political scientists, anyone that goes against the domestication of the belief system. Their character is always attacked, but never the information. Robert F. Kennedy is a great example of that. You say what you will about him, whether you agree with him, disagree with him. I'm not here to argue that. But they never attack his data. They never attack his information. Look at his book. His book is #1 everywhere. It was a popular book, but it hasn't been discredited. None of the data in his book has been discredited. And that's the thing that's very frustrating about the mainstream academic media. They will discredit the person so much so that people are more distracted by the lies of the character rather than the actual information. And that is what's so disappointing about many individuals right now, the people who willingly ingest the domesticated belief system. So, anyone out there who's listening, I implore you, do your own research on this stuff. I'll make sure to put the article in the description. Check out the article for yourself. Go on to the Sun Pyramid Foundation, look up the information yourself. Because we have to take into consideration that if we don't look up this information ourselves and validate it for our own beliefs, then we are just, we're complicit. And a lot of us are unwillingly complicit in suppressing the true history, suppressing the hidden history of our world and of our civilizations and of our cultures. So I implore anyone out there, just take some time. Find something within this world that you are curious about, but you see an active suppression, not allowing anyone to research it. Like we said earlier, the Bosnian Pyramid is literally the most transparent archaeological site in the world. It's been confirmed. So anybody, me, you, anyone, Jay Pylon who's listening in, anyone could go literally to Bosnia and help out and be a part of history, where none of us could go and excavate any of the sites in Egypt, because you have to be part of the clique, you have to be part of the crew, you have to be willing to lie to the masses. Think about that. If you want to do any type of excavations, any type of archaeological or anthropology studies in Egypt on any of those sites, your studies literally have to lie. How wild is that? That many of these academics, researchers, and field scientists, whatever you may have, many of them attack so much of the true history because it will affect their tenure, it will affect the years of lies that they have written, it will attack their reputation, all of that stuff. If the aliens pop down right now, you think Neil deGrasse Tyson is going to have much of a following afterwards, when he spent all this time pretty much saying aliens aren't real, anyone who believes in them are idiots and all that nonsense, yet you have all these congressional hearings about UAPs and UFOs? So, like I was saying, and as we wrap it up, the veil is continuing to be lifted. And more people are realizing the truth. More and more people are asking questions, are holding people accountable. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think for anyone out there, you don't have to feel that you need to believe in everything. You need to own it. What I say is, do your research, listen to people, take what works that applies to your life, to your beliefs, and you use that, and the rest you put aside. When it comes to information about these types of topics, you take what resonates with you and you expand on that, and the rest you put aside. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a firm believer in taking baby steps, focusing on one thing at a time. All of this information that we've kind of covered, and in general, it's overwhelming. There's so much of it. And that's why I believe that you got to find one little aspect of it that you're passionate or you're curious about, and you expand on that narrative, on that thread. You pull on that thread and you see what is revealed. Every single day to me, I'm shocked and surprised by new information that I learn. Whether it's in regard, because I love nature documentaries, so I be watching hours worth of nature documentaries, and every single day I am amazed at the level of intelligence within animals. It's truly astounding. And when we look at these old archaeological sites and these megalithic structures, anytime new ones get uncovered or new information, I get excited, because it makes me think about the potentialities that we have as a human collective and as a human consciousness that is being purposely withheld from us, purposely suppressed from us, so that we do not actualize our full potentiality as humans, as individuals, and as a community of like-minded individuals with similar goals and creeds, because they know that that could change the world. And they are doing everything in their power to prevent us from actualizing the truth of our humanity, cultures, societies, and creed. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Rōnin. All things, everything. If you enjoyed this episode and you've made it this far, please make sure to hit that like button, and please leave a comment with your thoughts below and sprinkle in a little bit of constructive criticism, as that will help me and the channel grow. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.